Starship log 22. I've been trying to get to shore for days. He left me alone out in the middle of the ocean with only a pair of Crocs and some water, but I'm okay. It's all for content. It'll be fine, truly. But if you have seen this message, I probably didn't survive, so thanks for all your support. Like and subscribe, and you can come to my sea burial. Thanks. Oh boy.
Well, I don't know if it's getting us though.
Hello, are you getting us? I feel misunderstood.
Got my new little gerbil.
Stan.
Stan.
I've named him Stan.
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 RG1280, RG1280, this is Tasmania time.
Did you turn the oven off? Did you turn the hair straightener off? What is that white thing in the water there? Is that a bird?
Seagull. Yeah. Welcome to another episode of Smallcraft Tasmania. I've got my special new mic on, so I don't have to shout at you anymore. And I'm going to stop pointing as well, because apparently I do a lot of pointing. I'm going to do this a lot. Oh, it's just an absolutely magic day. We've had the most incredibly long succession of low pressure systems come across Tasmania in the last maybe 3 weeks. Just here on Monday, which was just 4 days ago, we had 80 knots recorded in the channel. We're in Northwest Bay now. We're just about to come around the bottom of Tinderbox down into the channel. And so we're heading south, but they had 80 knots in here on Monday. It's incredible. Today we've only got about 5 to 10 knots. We're on a beam reach heading down to one of our favourite anchorages. It's called the Duck Pond inside Barnes Bay at Bruny Island. We've just left from Drew Point, and behind us you can see Mountain and also Joe's kayak. We never leave home without it. We've got a lot of things to cover in this episode. We're going to show you some of the mods that we've been doing to Seacat, our Com-Pac 16. We're going to show you the new sleeping arrangement we've got down below, our new galley. I'm going to talk to you about our anchor. We've got a couple of new spinnakers that we're hoping to try out. As we're going to set up the boom tent for the first time, see how that goes. I've done some modifications to the rudder, and I'll tell you about those now. This is the new rudder craft rudder that we ordered from the States, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's doing a really good job. When we pulled the rudder up, it only went to about here. Now that's a bit of an issue if you want to bring the stern into a beach, for example. You want to get the rudder out of the sand, so you need the rudder up at around about that angle when you pull her up. So I've had to take a little nip out of the top of the rudder. You can see from these pictures, it's only a few mils, but it allows the rudder to go up to about this angle. So if you need to back it into a beach, stern first into a beach, you can lift the rudder and you don't have to worry about damaging your rudder assembly. And this is the first time that you've been out with Jimmy's new sails.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Aren't they?
Yeah, he's done a good job.
We've also got a big announcement that we'll tell you about later in this episode, so hang around. Here's a little tip on how to melt the ends of Spectra. So you've probably used Spectra before, and when you cut it, you get the frayed bit, and if you want to melt the end, you can see what happens is when it melts, the inside of Spectra, because of the type of material, it's like the Dyneema, you can't actually melt it, it just burns. So one way to, let me just get some wind back in the sail. One way to, so I'm doing this lesson and sailing at the same time, and then Joe's filming. So one way to fix that I think is pretty neat, is make sure you've got a decent sharp knife. All right, you've got to make a decent cut and then pull the outside, the polyester, back slightly, pull the inside out like this, just about a centimetre, All right, that's why you've got to make sure you've got a decent sharp knife, otherwise you can't cut the inside of Spectra or Dyneema without a decent knife. So make sure you've got a good sharp knife. All right, then you pull the polyester back down, and then we melt. And now we've actually terminated the end of a Spectra cord, and we don't have the inside popping out like this. There's a little hint, a little trick for working with Spectra. The wind swung around from a northwesterly right around to an easterly now. Just passing the top of Tinderbox. This is Bruny Island here, exiting Northwest Bay into D'Entrecasteaux Channel. And it's just a nice breeze. Water speed app's telling us we're doing about 3.5 knots, and there's about 5 to 8 knots of breeze. We've got merch, and we're selling this merchandise through Print Locker. So you can buy caps, t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, there's hoodies.
Hoodies.
Yeah.
Gave mine away.
And
top.
so thanks for supporting us. It means that we can invest in things like this little fella, this new camera that we're using on a super duper GoPro stick that Ben got quite excited about on our last trip. Specialise in small boats like this, trailer sailors, small dinghies. He does a great job. He's based in Blackman's Bay in Tasmania, and he cut his teeth with North sails and Quantum sails. He knows what he's doing.
You can see him, but Matt has left me for dust because this is the best bit of wind we have had all day, and I am not able to keep up at the moment.
I've lost sight of Joe.
All by myself.
I can see her. Oh, there she is. I might sail down to her. going to keep tacking up into Barnes Bay and see if I can tack all the way into the duck pond. So we've been at sea now for 4.5 hours. We've done 8.8 nautical miles. Top speed was 5 knots. We're doing 3.5 at the moment. And we've got about another 1.5 miles to go. And Joe's kayaking. We'll probably kayak the rest of the way. So, one more tack. There's Barnes Bay in there. One more tack and I should get into the duck pond. Let's see how we go. Duck pond's a very popular anchorage for people that sail south from Hobart because it doesn't matter which direction the wind's coming from. It's a very safe anchorage. I've just turned around and Joe over here, and there's some dolphins just there. I don't know if you can see them. There's just enough breeze for me to sail in here. So that's Barnes Bay down there. Okay, we've just come through there, and then duck pond's just in here. That's the duck pond just in there, and I don't know if you can see there's a stake. Just, we've got to get around that. So let me put the GoPro back in its little hole and I'll see if I can sail in there. Just arrived in the duck pond, put the anchor down, and we're having a muesli bar. And I've just discovered that I don't think that this new little microphone that I got was actually connecting to the camera. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to go back and have a look at the footage, see if it works. Anyway, we've done 11.8 nautical miles today. Took us 5 hours and 37 minutes. Average speed of 2 knots. Maximum speed was 4.5. Maximum speed 4.5 knots. Not bad considering there wasn't much wind today. Yeah. And we've got the duck pond to ourselves. A couple of really good books. This one, A Speck on the Sea by William Longyard. This is full of incredible small boat voyages dating back 500 years right through to current time. It includes Inuits, dugout canoes, William Bligh, Tester, Webb Childs, Stewart, Man Ray. They're all in here. And not only does it go into the voyages, but it also describes the boats. And it's really interesting to look at the different boats over the 500-year period and how they've evolved, and also why a lot of these people embarked upon their voyages, what made them want to get in such a small boat and travel such a long distance. That's a fantastic book. The other book that I've enjoyed just recently, unfortunately, it was the only copy I could find, and it's a little bit damaged by it. It's an American writer, Robert F. Burgess, and it's called The Handbook of Trailer Sailing. And Robert Burgess, he's a bit of a legend in the States, and I think this book might be out of production now, but I've not come across such a good book that covers so many topics dedicated to trailer sailing and small boats in general. The reason I found out about this book is because this fellow, Robert Burgess, owned a Com-Pac 16, one of these boats, for many years. So a lot of the book is based around the Com-Pac 16, and it's been really handy for me. But not only does he talk about the Com-Pac 16, but he's well adversed in other boats as well. So there's a chapter at the end where he talks about all the other boats that he's owned and all the other boats that are available around the time that the Com-Pac 16 was popular in the States. 2 really good books. I'll leave a link below if you're interested. Highly recommended.
It's fun.
Having fun?
Absolutely. I get all the chips now.
All right. We just put up the boom tent, and we've put it up with the aluminium poles going this way. But you can also put it up with the poles going that way so that the sides come down and makes more like an A-frame. It'd be a good sunshade at anchor. And then if it was raining, you could bring it down like an A-frame if you needed to. It's a clever tent. Here's something else that I've done. This little chain pipe, it's facing the right way, but the lid doesn't stay down. Maybe it had a spring in there at one stage that was keeping it down, but when we were sailing, the chain was pulling it open, and then you'd end up with it open and water was getting in there. And I thought about turning it around, but then water's still going to get in there. It's facing the right way. I just needed this to close. So what I've done is I've drilled a hole either side, and I've put a piece of webbing over there. So now the piece of webbing just slides over the top like that. That keeps it closed. And to open it, you just slide the webbing back. That seems to work. Somebody was asking me the other day about the traveller that I put on the back of the boat, but it's not a traveller. I've just set up a bridle. So if you remember, there was a block here and then a block on that side as well, and then there was I think a 4-to-1 purchase. I can't remember exactly, and it went to the boom, and then you had your cleat just on one side. So I got rid of those, and I've spliced some Dyneema here, which is what we call a bridle. Okay, and then I've run the main sheet off the bridle, and then I'm just running these 2 bungees either side, and what that does, it just keeps it off the tiller, so that your block's just not banging on the tiller the whole time in light winds. I much prefer having the main sheet terminating at the central position rather than on the port or starboard side. So we've got Rogan Josh curry here, and we've got rice on. Little trick with the rice, if you want to conserve your fresh water, if you mix the fresh water with 50% seawater, you get a perfect amount of salt in your basmati.
Basmati.
And what we do is we freeze our curries before we leave. So the frozen curry acts like a freezer block in our esky, in our chiller box, or whatever you want to call it. Keeps the drinks cold and the fruit and veggies cold as well. You're pretty cozy.
Very cozy.
Yeah. What a beautiful night. Oh. Tucker time! How much?
That's heaps.
Looks like poo.
Oh, it's dripping.
Where? Don't get it on the gel coat.
Ow. Thanks.
Let's have that. Oh. Cheers.
Cheers. Diarrhea.
Diarrhea? Well, this is the best diarrhea I've ever had.
What are you doing?
Good night.
Good night.
This is our first night on board Seacat. We've managed to stuff everything in. And it's just like a two-man tent, really. It's actually bigger than a two-man tent, isn't it?
Yeah, well, look at the leg space.
Yeah.
You can't look at the leg space.
No.
But there's extra long room for our legs.
You can see up here, though, we've got a lot of stuff.
Stuff. We're stuffed.
A lot of stuff.
Chocolate eclairs.
No chocolate eclairs. There's a lot of stuff up here.
Like little coffins.
But it's quite comfortable. Tomorrow morning, stop pointing. Tomorrow morning I'll show you how we've set up the bunks, the berths in here. We modified them slightly. I'll show you that. Anyway, good night. Wow. There's a heavy mist this morning, and I can hear a rooster, but there aren't any houses for a few miles from here, so I think that the rooster's just a stray one out in the bush.
That rooster has been crying all night.
It has, isn't it?
Confused.
How did you sleep?
His beds are really comfy.
They're comfy, aren't they? Yeah. We had the hatch open all night. It was really lovely because it was a very clear night, so we could see the stars through here all night. In our last video, we announced that Joe and I had some big news. What's happening? In February next year, the Australian Wooden Boat Festival runs for 4 days, 3 or 4 days out of Hobart. Almost 400 boats registered for next year's Australian Wooden Boat Festival. Prior to the festival, there's a raid, a 9-day raid, a cruise. There's normally around about 20 or 30 boats that cruise from Research Bay, about 70 nautical miles south of Hobart, and they cruise for 9 days up into Hobart to meet the boats doing the sail past at the very beginning of the Australian Wooden Boat Festival. The raid happens every second year, along with the Australian Wooden Boat Festival. It is probably, in my opinion, the best run and perhaps even the best raid in Australia. Excuse me, I haven't had a coffee yet.
Have a sip of coffee, love.
And we're going to be doing it. Well, when I say we...
Not me.
I'm going to be doing it in the Navigator, the Welsford Navigator, and joining me on the boat will be John Welsford, because John Welsford's coming over to Tasmania to present at the Australian Wooden Boat Festival. So for 9 days, John Welsford and I will be cruising up the D'Entrecasteaux Channel and into Hobart, and we're going to be documenting the whole thing. There'll be probably 2, maybe even 3 episodes that we'll make out of that. Then, when John and I get into the Australian Wooden Boat Festival, John Welsford, along with Ben Tucker and myself, will be doing a presentation at the symposium, which you'll be able to buy tickets for. We'll be talking about modern small dinghy design, amongst other things. And then another thing, which I'm a little bit anxious about, it will be a Scamp capsize and recovery test, which I'll be doing in our Scamp Sea Dog, which is the fiberglass Gig Harbor Boatworks Scamp. Sea Dog won't be entered into the Australian Wooden Boat Festival for obvious reasons, but she'll be there
For demonstration.
for demonstration purposes, with me falling in and out of it in Con Dock.
A must-see.
And must say, John Welsford will be on shore narrating the whole event, and you'll be able to stand around Con Dock and watch me make a fool of myself. This is Matt's special toe in the hole. This is something we make pretty much every time we go away. 15 years of being a chef, and this is all I remember.
That's good.
What we'll do is we'll pick up the anchor and then head around to a place called Quarantine Bay with some interesting history there. We'll take you for a walk and show you the quarantine station. Once I finish this, I'll also take you below and show you our new sleeping arrangement. What's in that box?
All the electrical stuff, chargers, special knife, head torches. This is the electrical department.
That's the electrical department.
Fire extinguisher. This, I love this. Look, it looks precariously dangerous to all of the electrical stuff, but it works really well. Best.
The water tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the first aid stuff.
And the flares, safety gears, all up in that
Safety gear,
side.
fire extinguisher, sails, and it's so deep that the anchor is back there as well, out of the way. I think you've seen these before, but all of the kitchen galley stuff.
That's basically our galley. So the reason that we've got 2 compartments, 2 opening, is so that you can set up your cooker on one side and you can still get underneath.
Easy access.
Yeah, rather than have one big opening, you can still utilise the space on one side and access below.
And these are really good, really grippy, which I like.
Yeah, that's that. What's it called? That fake sticky
teak mat or something.
Teak stuff, isn't it? Yeah, we've also put it on the
floor
sole.
that needs a good clean.
So we talked about all of that in our last episode, and if you missed it, go back and watch the Jimmy's new sales episode. We called it New Sales, or to hank or furl. That was our dilemma. And what I did, I showed how I redid the whole of the inside of this boat. The old cushions that were in here, they're a bit like Grandma's
And they were one
couch.
piece. They were one
Weren't they?
piece. Yeah, they were terrible.
Horrible sort of...
Well, they were old and smelly and damp.
Yeah, and they were made of a material that soaked up the water. So we've used a vinyl, and rather than have 2 long cushions, we've cut them now. So we've actually got 4 cushions. Okay, so and these are different levels. Now there's a bit of thought behind this. So this top section is 75 mil, and then this bottom section is 50 mil. Now the reason being, because the distance down here for my hips, if my head is here, I can't get my hips underneath here. So what I've done by increasing this section here, it means that I can put my head up on top of this galley section. It's okay.
It works surprisingly well though.
Yeah, it's
was
okay for
comfortable.
Jo because there's enough room underneath here for her to turn around and so forth, so she can sleep with her head here. But for me, I just needed that extra space. But the beauty of having the 4 cushions here, this separate section, is that this bottom section here, this cushion here, believe it or not, is almost 6 foot long. And we pull these out and we can put these in the cockpit, so we can sleep in the cockpit.
Yeah.
Or use them as cushioning for the cockpit.
Yeah.
And also it means that this section here, we can pull this out and we can use that as a separate cushion for a backrest or whatever. That's the reasoning behind the way that we've set up the new sleeping area. So last night was our first night overnight in SeaCat. So it was to see how all of this worked, to see if we could fit all of our stuff in here. It was fine.
It was
in
really
fact,
comfortable.
there's more room in here than a 2-man tent. And having the boom tent out here means that you can, you throw your stuff out in the cockpit as well if you need extra room down here. But there was more than enough room for us.
It was great.
And when we go cruising, we normally live in the cockpit anyway. We don't spend much time down below, do we? It's more for...
just for sleeping.
Yeah.
Unless it's a beautiful night, then we tend to sleep in the cockpit.
Yeah. Yep. Com-Pac 16. Crack a little boat.
Winner.
Anyway, let's head around to Quarantine Bay.
I'm going to kayak.
All right. See you there. The e-propulsion's pushing us along at 100 watts, and according to water speed, I don't know if you can see that, 2.6 to 2.8 knots at the moment. That's pretty good, and it's so quiet. It's a great little motor. There is one thing I don't like about the e-propulsion. A lot of the petrol outboards, when you go to raise them, you can do it with one hand. They automatically click up, so you can hold onto the boat and pull it up with one hand. With the e-propulsion, you actually need 2 hands. There's a little clip you need to clip up, and then you pull the engine up at the same time. If the boat's a bit unstable, that process can make it a little bit hairy. It's the only thing I don't like about this motor. This is a really handy little cleat hook that you can grab from Bunnings. In Australia they're called Bunnings, which is a hardware store, and the company is called Night Eyes, I-Z-E, Night spelled N-I-T-E-I-Z-E, Night Eyes, and it's aluminium with some stainless. It's got a little cleat in here, you can see how that works. Really simple. And this one's rated at, I think this is rated at 200 kilos, and then there's a bigger one that I'll show you later, which I use for the Spinnakers, which is rated at about 500 kilos. Highly recommend these. Good jiggers. Wind's just picked up as we came around out of the duck pond. And just got to get around this point here, see. Just enough water for me to get around here. And straight ahead, you can see Quarantine. This is basically Quarantine Bay in here, and there's a little floating pontoon you can see dead ahead. And to the right, there's 3 gin palaces. Actually, we were really lucky to have the duck pond all to ourselves last night. Later in the afternoon, one of those gin palaces came in, and Joe gave them the stare. So they just turned around and went back out again. Joe's stare's pretty powerful. Yeah. Doing 3.5 knots now. Motor's off, motor's up. And it's probably only 4 or 5 knots of wind. This main is just so powerful. It's fantastic in these light breezes. This is the pontoon at the quarantine station. Joe's just there. She's filming me, filming you again. Let's go for a walk. I've been wanting to try out this super long selfie stick. Apparently there's a way to get rid of the selfie stick. I see people walking along doing this, and I wonder what their hands are doing out there, but now I've just learnt that there's a software that gets rid of the selfie stick. I haven't worked that bit out yet. This is a public pontoon that we come to quite often actually, and we tie up here. We come ashore and use this. It's really good. There's a little picnic table here. Most of these boats out here are here for the weekend. It's the start of the school holidays, so there's a lot of people out in boats at the moment, and considering the weather's just been so terrible, everybody's been itching to get out.
Also need a parks pass to come here.
That's right, you do.
It's a national park.
Yeah, a parks pass is essential. Let's go for a walk. We've just got to go up this hill and then we get to the quarantine station. This is an echidna. They're very timid. Isn't it beautiful? This is a couple of the old cottages at the quarantine station, and now it's inhabited by the volunteers. That's the museum up there. Nurses' quarters in here. And then you've got more outbuildings. A lot of the buildings have fallen down or been taken down. So this is the entrance to the quarantine station museum pontoon. And we've walked up here and we come around here to the museum. The quarantine station was set up around 1918, 1919 to deal with the Spanish flu pandemic, where 500 million people were infected and about 50 million people died worldwide. So all of the returned soldiers and all the immigrants used to come here to the quarantine station on Bruny Island. They used to quarantine them and then they'd move them back into Hobart. There's something inside I want to show you. Follow me. This is an article that was released in 1919 by the Department of Public Health in Tasmania. What does it say, Joe?
The patients feel giddy and are stupid.
The patients feel... I particularly like this bit here.
Avoid crowds in crowded rooms. In such places, it is recommended that a mask consisting of 4 or 5 layers of gauze be worn. A single layer of gauze or muslin is worse than useless, as the spray will pass through and increase the chances of infection.
Yeah.
The mask should be boiled and dried in the sun.
So is this all sounding a little bit too familiar? Now the spooky thing is, this was 1919. Anyway, that's the quarantine station. We'll head back to Seacat now and have some lunch. And hopefully the wind will pick up. See you back at the boat. Strangely, you know, the most asked question that we get is, where do we poo? Where's your toilet? And we have this technique. I've made this, a couple of little blocks on the bottom, and that sits on top of this bucket. If you're doing number 2s, you line the bucket with a plastic bag, you do your business, and then the plastic bag, you can just wrap that up, and we've got a sealed PVC pipe with a screw on each end. We just shove it into the pipe, and then over the period of our cruise, that pipe gets full. When we get home, we empty the pipe into the trash. If you're just doing number 1, I suggest you put a little bit of salt water in there first, then you do your business. And then you could probably just throw it overboard depending on your local government restrictions. Everybody's got different rules. This is a Cooper anchor. I've been asked what was the black nylon anchor that I used on Sea Dog when I sailed around Bruny Island, and it was the little brother to this. Cooper Anchors are an Australian company, and they make 4 anchors. They've got a little red one, they've got a blue one, they've got a black one. They're all nylon, and they've got a little bit of lead in them that gives them weight. And then they've got this one, which is their biggest anchor, and this is designed for boats up to 6.5 meters, and it's cast aluminium. And then inside the spade, there's a lead ingot inside. That's all sealed up. Now I've been using these anchors for years. I think they're fantastic. I use them on all of our little dinghies. In fact, Jeff McQueen, my mate who sailed around Tasmania and across Bass Strait a couple of times in his little 14-foot Houdini, used the black version of this, which is the same anchor we've got on Sea Dog, our scamp. Joe, do you remember that time we went up the Pieman and we anchored at the mouth of the Pieman, and we thought the anchor was stuck?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get the anchor up, and then the closer I got to where the anchor was, I could see it wasn't stuck. It had actually dug itself so far into the mud that it felt like it was stuck. The beauty of these spade anchors is that they're designed, as an anchor should be, is just to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's what they do. They work really well. I've never had one of these let go. And if you want something soft on your hull, the nylon versions are really good. They're fantastic for smaller boats. Cooper anchors, Australian made, really good. This is the first time that we've pulled this Spinnaker up. It's off a 29er, and it's about 180 square feet. Now, to put that into perspective, the jib and the main alone are around 121 square feet. It's too big for this boat because I like a little bit more tension on the luff. That way you can sort of beam reach with an asymmetrical. That luff is way too loose, so it's a good experiment. I mean, it'd be okay for downwind. You might need to pole it.
It's pretty.
So that's the 29er up, and so she's set on the outside of the forestay. And one of the issues with that is when you go to tack, or jibe, it's a pain because you've got to pull the whole thing around the forward stay or drop it. And I've got another asymmetrical that I'll show you in a tick, which is going to run from the inside of the forestay. Only a few knots of breeze, and the water speed app is telling us that we're doing 3 knots at the moment. Like I said, 180 square feet. That's a big kite for a little boat. So this is what I'm running the kite sheet through. And I showed you, I've got a smaller one that I think I told you it was rated at 250. That's actually rated at 122 kilos. This one's rated at 227 kilos. Okay, so it's a bit less than I thought, but still enough for this situation. Yeah, you get these from Bunnings. I think you call it a Home Depot store in the States. And then I just clip it on to whatever's available. It'll clip onto horn cleats. Yeah, they're really handy. I like these. Let's get the other kite up. That's off our Hobie, and that's about 60 square feet from memory. It's much more manageable than the big purple one off the 29er for this boat, especially for single-handed. You can see how the luff on that assy is much tighter. You wouldn't be able to do this with the purple assy because the luff just would have kept folding in on itself. If you've got a smaller sail wardrobe like we do, which is just the Stormsail and the 110% jib, so rather than having a Genoa on board, you can just use an asymmetrical. What is that? There we go. I'm just using the jib cars. You can see here. These are basically the jib cars, which I've just moved them right back, and that's the jib line as well. And then I'm also using the jib halyard. Now this is much easier to tack and to jibe this as well, because it doesn't have to go outside the forestay. It can come inside. Good size for this boat. We've had sea eagles and wedge-tail eagles flying above us. We've had dolphins, we've had seals, we've had echidnas. We thought we might see some snakes at the station, but not quite warm enough just yet. But they're coming. According to water speed, we're doing 2.5 knots, and we've come 3 nautical miles in 1.25 hours, about a third of the way back to the ramp. The sea breeze has come through now, and what's the time? It's 3:30, and straight ahead is Drew Point, and according to water speed, we're just 3.84 knots, just under the assy alone. Thanks again for watching Small Craft Tasmania. See you in the next episode. Stay salty.
Stay salty. Stay salty. Where's the food? Stay salty. I think copyright.
It's Mr. Hanky.
Mr. Hanky.
It's Mr. Hanky.
Stay salty, Mr.
The Christmas poo. See you later. I'll just demonstrate. So I won't demonstrate. I won't do, because there's already one in there. So what happens is we do this. We'll give it a turn like this, and then squash it down a bit, like that, and then we shove it into a tube, or a decent old yogurt container, or a really good Tupperware container, or something like that. You can just fill it up with all your crap. Anyway, that's the
How to poo in a bucket.
That's how to poo in a bucket.
All by myself, don't wanna be all by myself.